Good morning everyone, this is Dolphin Project. We're live from the ground in Taiji as a pod of dolphins is being driven towards the Cove. We spotted this formation at about 9 o'clock, about an hour ago. The boats actually, before that, looked like they were starting to head in, but then they quickly changed direction and all started heading down to the south, where they started to drive a pod. This pod was initially a lot bigger, but they've intentionally split the pod to get past the fishing nets. I'm not sure how many dolphins yet or what species, but as soon as we get confirmation of that, we'll let you know. But they've managed to drive this pod reasonably quickly. This pod did start off a lot larger, but they intentionally split the pod, and after they split it, a few more dolphins managed to escape and get away. We can hear the hunters banging on their poles to disorientate the dolphins. Dolphins are extremely sensitive to sound, so this means that the hunters can push them in any direction that they want to. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're currently live on Facebook and Twitter. The dolphin hunters started to head back this morning, but quickly changed direction and started heading down to the south, where they started driving a pod of dolphins closer towards Taiji. The Coast Guard is just making their way into the Cove right now. It's only been a few days since the last drive, which was a pod of melon-headed whales. 3 of them were taken for captivity, and the rest of the pod was slaughtered, including several juveniles. We actually saw the meat being sold in supermarkets just yesterday. And we're continuing to monitor the captive dolphins. So for 6 months of the year, from September the 1st until the beginning of March, dolphin hunters leave Taiji in search of dolphins. If they find them, they get into a dry formation and all line up and lower banger poles into the water, which they then bang on the ends of, which creates a wall of sound underwater, which helps to push the dolphins in the direction that they want them to go in, which in this case would be close to the coast, to the Cove. You can see the black smoke coming from the boats. The motivating force for these hunts is the captivity industry, seeing as live trained dolphins can be sold for so much money. But the hunters try and claim the hunts as tradition and culture because they've obviously got a long history of whaling. Apologies for these plants. They will obstruct our view for just a moment, but we should get a view of the boats again and the dolphins fairly shortly. So we can hear the banging from the banger poles pretty loud now. And as I said, we're not sure of the species just yet. They're still too far away, but we'll let you know once we get an identification. It's 10 in the morning here in Japan. If you're just joining us, thank you. This is Dolphin Project and we're live on the ground in Taiji by the Cove, where a pod of dolphins is currently being driven towards the coast. This pod was initially quite a bit larger, but the hunters intentionally split the pod It's sometimes due to the fishing nets and the fishermen getting frustrated with too many dolphins coming through and either getting caught in the nets or eating the fish. So if you've been keeping up to date with our posts on social media, then you would have seen the 3 dolphins, the 3 melon-headed whales that were captured on Sunday. We managed to locate them in a pen in Moira Bay. And they appear very confused and disorientated. They're spy hopping quite a lot and sticking close to each other. They're completely unaware that the rest of their family were slaughtered. Again, apologies for the plants. They are obstructing our view for the minute, but they'll be making their way past fairly shortly. So the boats have to snake their way through fishing nets, and so that's why they've pushed the dolphins all the way towards the mouth of the harbour. But they will be coming just round the corner in just a second. The weather conditions are pretty calm here today. It's getting quite hot now as we get closer to the middle of the day, and the water is extremely still and there's no wind, which unfortunately is great conditions for spotting dolphins. So skiffs have joined the banger boats now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. If you've just started watching, this is Dolphin Project. We're live on the ground in Taiji, Japan, where a pod of dolphins has been found and driven towards the cove. We don't yet have confirmation of the species, but we'll let you know once we get an ID. At around 8:30 this morning, the boats actually appeared to be heading back to the harbour without any dolphins, but they suddenly changed direction and started heading south and started driving a pod. So once the dolphins get to the cove, once the hunters have pushed them in, they're netted across so they can't escape, and then they'll either go through a captive selection process where they'll pick the prettiest and youngest dolphins with the least amount of scarring and injuries for a life in captivity. They'll put them in slings and drag them along the side of skiffs to take them to pens, and then with the remainder of the pod they'll either slaughter them for their meat or release them back into the wild without their family members. Dolphin meat is extremely high in mercury, as dolphins are towards the end of the food chain, which can be extremely dangerous and could cause mercury poisoning. But the meat is still sold in supermarkets and in restaurants. We saw the melon-headed dolphin meat in a supermarket just yesterday. Those dolphins were slaughtered on Sunday. Please share this live stream. We're live on both Facebook and Twitter at the moment. But it's really important that we get the word out about what happens here in Taiji, to encourage people not to visit marine parks and go to a dolphin show.